the complaints you guys have been receiving? What are people saying?
Sandy?
I talked to most of the people. Some of them left voicemail messages at the campaign, and they called and said that they thought they didn't vote properly, that they couldn't find the senior levy, or they would ask us where the senior levy was. Some people called and complained because it wasn't in the title. The Franklin County people said, I didn't even know that was the senior levy. And they would call and they would say, what number is our senior levy? Because they couldn't find it on their sample ballot or on their absentee ballot. But most of the calls were from seniors. We also received several from the safety forces. There's I think there's over 300 police, fire, and other first responder levies on the ballot. And they called and just said, look, we're getting lost. Is there anything you can do? So, but I would think they were 2-to-1 seniors versus safety forces.
So it hasn't really been concerns that people aren't voting on issue 2. It's the things that come after issue 2?
Right. Or
okay.
People would complain that the language on issue 2 went on and on and on, and they didn't think it was, they thought that they were getting it in the wrong order or something. I guess the breaks on the pages were a little bit odd, some of the people said. And so by the time they found the vote yes or no, they were even more confused than they were before. You know, Dan's right. This language doesn't have to be that long. He just summed it up in 30 seconds.
Have you gotten any indication as to whether or not voters are holding it against issue 2?
I don't think they are. I mean, they were calling us for advice, which I thought was a good sign.
But I don't think there's any question that the goal of John Husted's ballot board in approving this overly lengthy and cumbersome language was to confuse people, and by doing so get them either to vote no or not vote at all.
And obviously that's pretty traditional if you remember.
I mean, he remembered Secretary of State Husted made the decision to come out against issue 2 even before we had officially qualified for the ballot.
And when people get confused, the gut instinct is to say no. And that's the same concern with the senior services levy, because it doesn't say it's a senior services levy. It just says it's a levy until you read the small print. And a lot of people get nervous about reading the small print, you know, especially if they have any kind of vision problems, as many of my retirees do. That they just get confused and say, well, if I don't know what it is, I'm either going to leave it blank or react negatively.
And we, you know, the reason we're having this press conference today, more than anything else, is to ensure that seniors and other needy people don't become collateral damage of the career politicians' self-serving effort to defeat issue 2.
Pretty interesting to see the drop-off.
I haven't voted in Ohio, so I'm sorry if this is a stupid question, but do they typically name the local issues?
Yes. So for the Hamilton County Senior Services Levy, it says it's a renewal for Hamilton County Senior Services Levy. For the Franklin County levy, however, they don't specify what it's for just until you get to the small print. So as I said, the Hamilton County Senior Services Levy in the bold print says it's a senior services renewal levy.
Is that up to each board to decide? Or?
Actually, it's the ballot board. The Dispatch did a story that the senior levy people in Franklin County were unhappy with the title. The ballot board does the title and they dictate the language. And they wanted that, it's called the senior option levy, they wanted that in the title. And they not only didn't get that, they didn't get anything with senior in it. And so there's a lot of concern, and that's a 5-year renewal, and it deals with transportation, Meals on Wheels. It's a
To get to seniors, you have to go into the 4th line down in the small print.
It's on the next page, right? Or
it's
on the same page. Yeah.
the same page as issue 2. It's the last page out of 3 for Franklin County. But as I said, you have to read 4 lines of the small print before you realize it's for seniors.
Yeah, and I would also note, I didn't mention this in my opening remarks, but they left off the description of issue 2, something that would have very nicely summed this up for voters. They've left off the actual title of issue 2, which appeared on the front page of the initiative petition that over 400,000 Ohioans signed, which says Ohio Citizens Independent Redistricting Commission Amendment, because John Husted and his ballot board knew that if voters saw that title, if they knew what issue 2 would actually do, they'd vote for it overwhelmingly.
There's always a drop-off every year for,
Yeah.
the further down on the ballot you get, there's always a drop-off.